Hello and welcome to my tier list of the new Balatro Demo, where I'm going to list my favorites and my least favorites on a rank of S to D. Now this tier list doesn't have an F, which, I mean, definitely some do belong in F in my opinion. But, I mean, yeah, we'll see. And we're just going to go through it. And if you do like my videos and stuff, I do ask, could you please subscribe so that I can reach the milestone of 500 subscribers. That's our goal right now. And let's get right into it with, I guess, 8-Ball Joker. Now, sadly, I don't get to use this guy very often because he just seems so rare. I don't see him very often. But he is a good card. I would definitely put him... I think he's a good A tier. Now, if you can get some negatives, I also think that Celestial, it's a B tier unless you can get negatives, which then it would be an A tier, in my opinion. Now, this guy makes it so all cards in the shop are... It makes them all free that are in the shop. This does not mean card packs. So sadly, I think this is going to be the first to D tier, because I don't ever use him. He just is... He's not a very good uncommon, and he's just straight bad. Yeah. Banner, funny enough, I think Banner is a C tier. It depends on which deck you use. It's a lot better with red deck, of course, but it's just like there's a lot better Jokers for chips than this, because the highest you can get is 80, and there's Jokers that are just straight up better. Now this, I'm gonna give normal Joker C tier, because if you're starting out, that 4 multi makes a big difference. So that's why I'm gonna put the normal Joker into C tier. I definitely don't think he's worth D tier because he works all the time. If he didn't work if he had a special need, he would definitely be D tier. But since he's just a 4 mult, he is definitely a better buy in some situations than getting nothing. Now, Blackboard, I think Blackboard, as it is a good card, it's hard to get working. So I think that's why why Blackboard deserves B tier. Because if you get it in a good deck, yes, it is worth using, but getting it to a point where it's guaranteed to get that to work, compared to some other ones, I don't know. That's why I think Blackboard is B tier. Along with Burglar, I think Burglar is another B tier, because he does allow some cool strategies, but that's about, like, if you're not doing high card or you're not using bus, he's not very useful, because sometimes it's better to have the discards than it is to play the cards. Yes, it is a moneymaker in a way, but sometimes it's just better to have the discard than it is, because you can get up to 4 discards, and if you have red deck, you can get up to 5 discards. Now, if you're pairing him with Blueprint, then of course he goes up to almost S tier, because you can get up to 11 hands, but on his own, I think he is definitely worth a B tier. Next, we're going to move on to Business Card. Business Card, I think, is definitely a C tier. And I think it is a good card. I do love Business Card, don't get me wrong, but Business Card cannot be used in abandoned deck. Really. You can if you modify it and you get a right seed, but it's not, if you don't get something that doubles the playing of the face cards, or you modify your deck to get face cards, I think it's a good C tier. Now, Tarot Card Joker, I think he is an A tier. He is like 8-Ball, but you're guaranteed 1 per game. If I see him, he's always usually an instant buy for me. So I definitely do, he does have a special place in my heart. Now, Dagger, I think Dagger is a definite C tier. If I get it, well, okay. If we're going by cards by itself, I think I have to put it in D tier. Because I can't say I'm doing the cards by themselves. I'm not doing synergies. I'm not doing other stuff. So that's why I think it deserves a D tier. Because if you get it late, it's not worth. Unless you have money making, it's not worth. And it's not good. Now Celestial, I think is an S tier. Or Constellation Joker. I forget what his name is. I think it's Constellation. But he is definitely an S tier. He's going to be my first S tier on the list. And because just by himself, you can get, if you get him early, you can get up to 4 times Molt, which is insane. Of course, you can get more, but still, 4 times Molt just by buying planet cards, which you most of the time you want to buy anyway. And that's where my opinion is on it. So next we're going to do is I think this is Flush Joker, or is this Straight? This is Straight Joker. I think he. Only because he has 15 Molt. Because he's a 15 Molt, I think that's why it gives him C tier. If he was a 10 Molt, he would be a D tier. That's because you can only use it with straight flushes. And straight flushes are really not the best. I mean, they're okay. But you're going to want 5 of a kind, or literally just like 2 upgrades with a full house. And I just feel like that's so much better, in my opinion. That's why he's going to go in C tier. Now, funny enough, I think Delayed Gratification, I want to put it in B tier. Because if you have the setup, maybe C tier. I'll put it in C tier because unless you have a good setup, it's hard to not use discards. So that's why, and plus if you're not using red deck, it's not as useful. So that's why I think I'm gonna put it into C tier. You think it's B tier? It's $6. I guess it's a guaranteed $6 if you don't use it. I'm very on the edge. Okay, because of red deck, I'm gonna put it on B tier because of red deck. That's the only reason I'm gonna put it in B tier. DNA, it's an S tier for me. It's very powerful. Easily get straight into 5 of a kind if you have the right setup. So that's why I'm gonna put DNA in S tier. That's gonna be the second S tier because you can do polychrome, you can do glass, you can do multi cards, get into 5 of a kind, easily beat the demo, and then you're done. Now Flush Joker, I'm gonna put it. It's only a 10 Molt. I'm gonna put it in C tier because it works with flush houses. A 10 Molt on a very specific card type is really hard in my opinion, especially if it doesn't work with like any other types. It works for straight flush houses, and I guess it does work with 5 of a kind. Actually, it does work with 5 of a kind, but if you're playing 5 of a kind, and again, I guess, no, I think it definitely belongs in C tier, in my opinion. Now Dusk, I'm gonna put in A tier, because if it doesn't have blueprint, it's not as powerful. But it can still save you. If you have Molt cards, if you have chip cards, if you have any type of card. Well, I'm not going with synergies. So we're not counting synergies. So this is Dusk only counting chips, glass, and actually it works with glass. You know what? Since it works with glass, I'm going to put it in A tier. Because it works with glass, it works with any type of upgrade. So that's why I think I'm gonna put it into A tier. Or no, S tier, my bad. So I think that's why the glass is the only reason I think it belongs in S tier, because even if you don't have Constellation, you don't have the extra Molt Jokers by itself, if you have 5 glass cards with a Dusk, that's gonna easily get you to beat the demo. Yeah, I'm not doing synergies. I'm only doing synergies with that's not Jokers. So since it works with glass cards, it works with chip cards, and it works with multi cards. That's why I think Dusk is worth S tier. Synergies. I'm meaning Joker synergies, not card synergies. Egg, I think, belongs in... I'll put it in C tier because you do gain money. If you get it first turn, it is a good way of getting money. It's not as good as some of the other ones, but it is still a way to get $3 per round. Of course, you're gonna want Gold Joker instead of it, or maybe some other ones, but Egg, I think it sits very confidently in C tier for me. Now, even Joker, I think it's a B tier. Because you can have multiple evens pretty easily. It's 2, 4, 6, and 8. If you're doing Abandoned deck, it is a godsend. If you're doing the other ones, it's not as good, but it is still pretty good. That's why I think it belongs in B tier, because it's very good synergies with Abandoned deck. And that's pretty much it, because it doesn't do anything else other than just like 4 multi, because you could easily get 12 multi. And it's not like blocked behind a specific hand set or specific type. So that's why I think it belongs in B tier. Now Fibonacci, I think it's better because it does work with aces. Okay, so this one works with 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So it works with 5. Fibonacci works with ace, 2, 3, 5, 8. That's also 5. But it works with aces. So since this works with aces and 8s, I think that's why I think it works with an A tier. Because just having it on aces is really good, in my opinion. Because you always want to go for 5 of a kind aces. Because that's a 10 card. And I guess you could also say that you could go for... I don't know. I think this is borderline A tier. But this, I think, since it works with aces, I think it deserves A tier. Now, this one is definitely a questionable topic on forehand. I do like forehand, but I don't use it very often. I think forehand is definitely a solid B tier because you can make flush houses, and it makes it easier flush houses, which are the best card in the game, or best hand type in the game. And since it helps out with flush houses, and it helps out with straight flushes, and it helps out with the other ones, that's why I think it belongs in a solid B tier. I don't think it's A tier. It doesn't enable very high gameplay, but I think it is definitely a solid B tier. Now, Gold Joker, I think Gold Joker is A tier. A lot of people might say that it belongs in like B tier, but if you get Gold Joker early, that's a lot of money. I think it's A tier. I think Gold Joker is definitely an A tier. It's easily an A tier, and I don't think it's not an S tier. I think it's barely an A tier. It's at the definitely at the bottom half of definitely the bottom of A tier, but yeah, it still belongs in A tier. Now, I think Banana is A tier as well. The only reason I think Banana is A tier is because it's a no condition 10 molt. If it had a condition, it would definitely be a B or C. But since it has no condition, it is just a free molt. You can get it early and maybe last a few rounds. It'll pay for itself if you get it early. And even late, sometimes it's worth getting Gross Michael, I think, in my opinion. I think Gross Michael is definitely an underrated card. because it breaks a 1 in 10 chance to be broke. And if you get a better card, you can always just sell Gross Michael before it breaks. So I think you definitely get your money back on Gross Michael. And now, Half Joker. Half Joker, I think, is a C tier. You should only be using Half Joker if you're doing specific decks, or you're doing like emergency type stuff. Because the highest you can play is a 3 of a kind. That's the best hand you can play with Half Joker. And yes, it can get you through early, but I don't think it's worth B tier. I think it's just a nice, it's a good early, and that's about it. Hiker, I think, is a D tier. Because there's no way you're playing a card enough to get it to like super high. Because you'd rather want Banner, you'd rather want even Steve or Odd Todd. Especially you'd rather want Ice Cream. So you're saying, okay, well, that's the bit. We'll get onto that whenever we get to it. Now, I think Ice Cream is an S tier. You can fight me all you want, but I think Ice Cream is an S tier because it's a $2, or is it $5? It's either $5 or it's $4. I forget which one it is. But in the end, you're either spending $3 or $2 on something that enables easily way better scoring. So that's why I think Ice Cream deserves an S tier. No, I'm going to stick with my Hitchhiker being low. Because you're not going to get the cards that high. You're not. And I think Stencil is an A tier. Mostly only because it costs it's definitely on the higher end of A tier. But I think because you can't have that extra Joker slot. Well, actually wait. When you fight the final boss, you have to get rid of a card. You know what? You're going into A tier. Because I'm going to put it S tier. I'm going to put Stencil in S tier only because in the demo is the final boss. So, since the final boss, you have to sell one. More than enough, this is going to be better on a final hand. That's why I'm going to put Stencil into S tier. Now, I have a rough situation with this Joker. I like it. I don't love it, but I do like it. I'm going to put it into B tier. If you can get a negative card, this gets a whole lot more value, but also getting a negative is really hard to get. It's not guaranteed. That's why I think Juggler is definitely a good B tier. Because it's not an A tier. It's definitely higher up in the B tier, but it's not enough to get into A, in my opinion. Now we're gonna talk about this guy. I think it is a solid A tier. Because if you play all your hands, you are gonna get one proc of it every other blind. So I think that it's not S tier. It is definitely not S tier. Because to make it S tier, you need synergies. And there's nothing that works that well, just like normal base game wise. We're not talking about Jokers. We're talking about the Jokers just by themselves. Only the Jokers by themselves, along with the synergies, with like putting multi on cards, putting chips on cards. So that's why I think it deserves an A tier. Because you need like extra hands, or you need extra many other things. Get out of here. Okay. 4 of a kind. I think 4 of a kind, since it's very limited, but it's the highest possible you can get. That's why I think 4 of a kind deserves B tier, because it's the highest. You can get 20 molt, but it's very limited to 4 of a kind. But getting 5 of a kind is not that hard to get, in my opinion. That's why I think it deserves B tier, but definitely not A tier. It is, I think it's the lower end of B tier, in my opinion. Next, I think Stone Card is C tier. I don't care for it. It's nice in high card runs. Other than that, you're not going to use it because you're going to want 5 of a kind. You're going to want Flush House. I think Marble Joker is C tier. And talking about C tier, I think Misprint deserves C tier as well, because it's too random. If you get 2 ones in a row, that could end your whole thing. It's not consistent. It's not guaranteed. Yes, you can get high rolls, but in the end, you can still get a 0 and a 1 right after the other. And that could just end your run and just suck. I've lost many games to Misprint. That's why I think it deserves C tier. I bought Marble Joker. Marble Joker is useful. It does have its uses, but it's not the greatest, in my opinion. Now, I think, whatever this one's called, Mount something, I think it's something, I don't know. But zero discard. The use of this one is when you have 0 discards, you get 15 multiplier. That is a godsend early. It is better than most of the Jokers underneath. It's definitely better than Banana, of course, because the Banana can rot. I'll sort it out later. We'll just do this. I'm not gonna sort them. Maybe I'll sort them this way. But this is definitely A tier. It is not. I don't think it's S tier. But I think it's a really good high. It's definitely very high up in the A tier. Because you're gonna use all your discards most likely. And just getting 15 mult for easily getting rid of your discards, it's just so good. I think. Now for Odd Todd. I think Odd Todd is a good B tier. Chips are hard to come by. You can easily get odd numbers, especially in Abandoned deck. And what else? And it works with aces. So working with aces, and then all the odds, I think Odd Todd has a very good spot at definitely not high B tier, maybe middle B tier, I think. Definitely not as good as the multi-Joker, but, or even Steven. But Odd Todd is still really good, in my opinion. So I think it's a definitely good B tier. Now, my ideal on power, I think it can carry you early game. Okay. I'm gonna put power. I'm gonna put it low B tier. Like, I'd bottom of the rope B tier. Because early game, it is good. Early game power, it can easily get you through, get you more money, get you more stuff like that. But late game, it's not worth. Because to guarantee that you get 1-2 that doesn't count into your hand, and it's just over. And then you're getting 4 molt when you could be getting 20 molt, and most likely you have other stuff. So I think it's definitely a B tier, but definitely on the lower end. It's either high C tier or low B tier, in my opinion. Okay, everyone knows Blueprint, you get up there. You're A tier, or S tier. The Blueprint is always going to be an S tier. Because it works with any Joker, almost any Joker. I know we're not talking about synergies, but this guy has to have a pass. Because he works with almost every Joker. Even though I did say we're not going to count, he is the one, because his ability is to copy others' abilities. So in having that flexibility, he gets S tier, even though I did say we're not counting other Jokers with it. But that's his main premise. His main premise is to copy other Jokers. We're doing a tier list, is what's going on. Bus. I think it deserves an A tier. It can get really high. And that's why I think it deserves A tier. It's definitely, like, not the high end of A tier. Maybe, like, mid-bottom A tier. I'd say I'd put Bus. But it is still a really good card. It is definitely better than Power. Because you can build it up early and basically guarantee a run, especially if you have Abandoned deck. Now remember guys, we're not counting synergies with jokers. We're counting synergies with cards, but we're not counting synergies with jokers. Keep that in mind while we're going through this tier list. Now, Sprinter. I think Sprinter... I think I'm gonna have to put it in C tier. It's definitely a high C tier. It is definitely the top part of C tier. But it's definitely not... I don't think it's enough to be B tier. Because you have to play straights. You're stuck into straights. So I think that's why I stick it into C tier. Because it doesn't have flexibility like some other cards. Or like some other jokers. And it's rare. It's uncommon. You're most likely unlikely to get Runner early. And that's when you have to have Runner. You have to have Runner early. Or it's not going to work. Okay. Face cards. I'm going to put... I'm gonna put it in high D tier. Because face cards don't have any other synergy other than being 10 cards. And you're already getting a lot of chips. So you want multiplier with face cards rather than chips. Getting chips with face cards is not as good as getting multi with face cards. So if Scary Face was a multi instead of chips, I think it would be in C tier. But that's why I think it's definitely top D tier is for face cards. If it was like lower cards getting higher, and it's a worse odd Todd. In my opinion, it is a worse odd Todd. It has less synergies with cards. It has, I don't know. I just don't think, especially since it doesn't work with like aces. Which it makes sense because face cards, it makes sense. Now, A+ Joker, the easy A. It's funny because I think it's not S tier. It's definitely very high A tier. Because you're going to go for 5-of-a-kind aces, and it's literally Even Steven and Odd Todd smushed together to form A+. It is stuck to a very specific card, but I think its payout is worth a lot more, in my opinion. Now, we're going to move on to Smudge Joker. I think Smudge Joker, because it's a rare, and because you're not going to get it early most likely, and it's harder to come by, I think it deserves a B tier. It needs other jokers to synergize with it, and you have to modify your deck a little bit. So, I think it's a low B tier. I think Smudge Joker is a low B tier. It's not going to carry your run, because you got to get multipliers. So that's why I think this is where it goes. 3-of-a-kind. I think since 3-of-a-kind works with Flush House, it works for 3-of-a-kind, it works for Full House, and it works with 4-of-a-kind, it works with 5-of-a-kind. So I think that's why I think it's going to go into a B tier. A very high B tier is what I think. I think 3-of-a-kind is a very high B tier because there's so many ways, so many card types it can go into. That's why I think that it is definitely a B tier. A very high B tier at that. Splash. I think Splash is a C tier. I don't really care for it. You need other jokers to make it good. All it's going to do, at max, it's going to add maybe some multiplier, maybe some chips. If you don't have any modified cards, at max, it's going to add... At max, it's going to give you 50 chips. 40 chips if you just play high card. So that's why I think Splash, maybe mid-tier C, in my opinion. Mid-tier C. Because you need other things to synergize with it. Yes, you can use Molt with it. And then you can get extra multi if you have a bunch of multi cards. It also works with glass. Maybe since it works with glass and stuff, put it like maybe higher up in C tier. But I think it still belongs in C tier. Now Constellation, it's hard because you can get it high. I think it's a B tier, but it's like bottom rank B tier. Because it is good if you play the exact same hand over and over again. But if you're doing Flush House, you're only gonna get one play per turn. So that's a max of, if you play Flush House every turn, because at the base Flush House is like 5,000. So until you get to like tier 4 or ante 4, you're gonna be able to play 2 Flush Houses maybe, or 5 of a kind. You're not gonna get to play many 5 of a kinds. So I think it's a lot better for like high card or maybe lower type cards. That's why I think it deserves a low B tier. It's not like A tier where it can be used in any deck. Well, I guess it can be used in any deck, but still, it doesn't work with high synergy stuff. And this you can work through early and get really high, and then you can switch to Flush House and still get the multiplier. That's why I think Bus is way better than this one. Supernova. I think that's what it's called. And then this is just D tier. The chance of you getting an ace straight is just, it's god awful. I don't think it's good at all. It's no. And I think to-do list, I think it's a high C tier. I think it's a very high C tier, if not like almost breaking into B tier. Because if you get an easy to-do list, it pays for itself. That's why I think it deserves C tier. So I think this is where I go. This is my opinion, with all my hours in the game. I think this is my opinion on all of this. And we are trying to reach 500 subscribers, so if you do like my content and you want to see more of it in the future, subscribing is the best way to help with that. Liking also helps. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next tier list or video. So I will see you guys in the next one. See ya!